Hello and welcome to Property Information Evening. My name is Salesh Chand and I'm a chartered accountant in public practice. And today we'll be talking for about 1.5 to 2 hours, depending on the feedback we get from you guys. Format of the day, it's pretty casual, so feel free to ask questions or type in your questions and we'll answer them as we go. And we'll also give you opportunity to ask questions right at the end. So feel free to hang around till then. And we'll give you examples, live examples of the kind of property investments that we are doing at the moment. And hopefully the next couple of hours, we'll try and make it entertaining for you. As mentioned, I'm a chartered accountant in public practice. I'm an active property investor. I buy and hold. I do cash flow investing. I do land banking assets. I also invest funds into trading activities where you buy, do up, and sell houses. We'll show you examples of all this later on. I'm also partner here at GRA. Currently, I have 17 years experience in property and business accounting, and I do a lot of advisory work for clients with businesses, especially on the funding side of things, or if they're buying businesses. And I attract a lot of clients who are property investors and also business owners, or mum and dad who are doing properties as investments on the side. Currently, we have 51 properties in our whole portfolio. Majority of these assets are generating cash flow. They're cash flow positive, and they're land banking. So they're cash flow positive, and they've got big size land that we can build on later on. If we subdivided all the properties we have, we'll end up with circa 300 sections. Now, this is the advantage of doing land banking. I'm not rushing to subdivide those properties at the moment because I'll do them over time. I just don't have the manpower to do all 300 now. Currently, we're building 17 new builds. So that's underway this year. That's our aim, to finish the 17 new houses. So you can see we are quite busy with the housing, and we constantly buying properties and doing them up and holding them and renting them out and building new houses. Today I've got Then and Maggie joining me, but I'll just have to say sorry. Maggie had to pull out in the last minute because she's sick and she can't really talk. So I have Then talking today. Then is a property investor. And he's also an active trader. He's out there buying and selling properties all the time. He also does help a lot of our clients with making decisions about market valuations and things like that, and what kind of renovation work is needed. He's also our project manager, so he's out on site bidding people up. Maggie, on the other hand, is a professional investor, and she's more focused on portfolio growth. We'll talk about her portfolio later in the presentation. She helps clients with due diligence and advise clients around what to look for in buying properties. She also does development projects, which is quite a good skill to have. And Maggie is quite detailed. So clients, they use Maggie and Then, they enjoy dealing with them, and they're very informative. So you probably want to be friends with Maggie and Then if you're looking at getting into properties or looking at buying something else. I've also got a good friend of mine joining in today as a special guest, is Kris Pedersen. He's the founder of Kris Pedersen Mortgages, really good mortgage broker. When I first started investing, he's the one who gave me a hand with banking, and he got me across the line, so many times with banking, and it wasn't easy. Banking was really hard back then. Even now, it's hard. But to have someone, Kris, on your side is amazing. He's a top advisor, so one of the top advisors in the country, and he does specialist lending as well for investors. If you're doing development sites or the banks are not giving you funding, Kris can help you get funds. And Kris will join us later. So before I move any further, I just want to make it clear to everyone, I'm a chartered accountant in public practice. I'm not a FMA. I do not give you financial advice. And all I can hint to is what we do. If you need financial advice, you need to talk to someone like Kris Pedersen, because he's a mortgage broker, whereas we are not a mortgage broker. Something about GRA. So if you don't know who we are, what we do, we are a specialist accounting firm in property and business accounting. We do a lot of asset protection work. Asset protection means your family home, your businesses, or anything that's worth a lot to you. We look at protecting that from creditors. That's one of our core skills. We also do insolvency advice. So this is basically where clients or if you are not able to clear your creditors, that includes IRD, suppliers, or anyone, we can help you negotiate and get into settlements. Even if you require liquidations, we can guide you through liquidation or to a liquidator. We also give you tax advice specific to your needs. So, if we review your affairs and we can see we can save you tax, we'll give you advice based on that, and we'll do all the tax planning for you as well. We do incorporate trust. So if you do need trust, we do incorporate that, and we provide professional trustee services. Professional trustee basically means you have kids, mum and dad. You have kids that are little. What happens if something happens to mum and dad? Who's going to look after the kids? So we become the professional trustee and guide you through it. Sometimes you only have mum, no dad, so we become professional trustee in that trust. And there's other reasons you need professional trustee. We also do property investment and education. So one of our main schools that we get our clients to go to so they can understand terminology is property school. And then once you've done property school, it's up to you if you'd like to do development school. You're not forced into anything like that. It's totally your choice. But property school is one of our core education platforms that we educate you about property investing. Now, what property school offers you is a list of suppliers or people you should be using when you buy properties. So that includes your bankers, Kris Pedersen, includes Maggie, Than, lawyers, basically accountants who you should be using when you're buying properties. So that's what you get at property school. You get a list of supply chain. And trust me, everyone that does property school, they email us and tell us how good it is. If you like to follow GRA and what we do, here's a bunch of links that you can click on or take a photo of and then follow it later. Basically, if you do sign up for our newsletters, you'll get free resources, you'll get free letters, and if there's any changes about tax or properties, we do write to you and let you know. So here's our blog, so feel free to follow them. Now, just a quick market update. What are we seeing out there and what's happening? At the moment, we are still seeing discounted properties available. Now, they're not easy to come by, but they are still out there. So if you are getting into property investing, probably now is the time to go and find yourself a well discounted property. There's still good buying opportunities, so if you go out there, you can negotiate well and buy properties probably below, probably around the 2018, 2019, 2020 prices. So there's good buying opportunities, and we see clients every day buying. You would not believe the amount of clients are buying properties at the moment. Interest rates are tracking downward. No, I don't know if you've read the Herald today. They're estimating interest rates will be down to low fours in the next 12 months. So that's pretty good rate. If you can get low fours, that's cheap. And I personally think if, the way the whole world economy is going, we could probably be into the high trees. I wouldn't be surprised. So now is the time to go and hunt for the right property. Try and get it under contract. Do your due diligence. If it's the right property, buy it, because property prices will go up when interest rates come down. It just happens. Now, the other thing you've got to remember is we haven't had migration tap being turned on. As soon as immigration taps turned on, we'll have a lot of people coming in with funds, and they'll be buying houses as well. So property prices will go up long term. Now, Than will tell you we build houses, and nothing is cheap at the moment. All we're seeing is price of renovation going through the roof. If you can do renovations for $40,000, that's a dream. Now it costs you $40,000 just to paint the house. It's so expensive. You're spending $200-300 on 10 liters of paint now. Even to move rubbish out, it's so expensive to hire those rubbish bins. So everything is just through the roof. Just letting you know, labor cost is up there. They're not coming down. So long term, I don't see property prices coming down. I can see them going up. Also, there's a lot of new buyers qualifying for home loans. As the Reserve Bank and the banks reduce the red tapes around lending, more buyers will get in and buy houses. What we're noticing is there's a weak tenant demand in many places. And this is because, there's some houses are being built without car parks, or not enough car parks, or tenants are not able to even fit in the bathroom or the toilet because they're being built so small and tight. So what's happening is there's massive weak tenant demand in those kind of houses. But if you do have a big house and there's lots of parking space, those houses are rented really quick. We've noticed that as well in our own portfolio. We don't do tight townhouses. All the townhouses we build are spacious with 2 or 3 car parks. We don't build houses without car parks. There's surplus unsold houses hitting the rental market at the moment, and this is again because of immigration. That immigration tap's not been open. As soon as that gets open, you'll have 5 or 10,000 people move into the country. Suddenly, we're going to have housing shortage, and you'll remember this day me telling you there will be housing shortage coming, and there's still strong demand for social housing. It's actually next level at the moment because there's so many people after social housing because the government has shut motels and hotels um, for for social housing tenants, so they have to go into housing. So there's a strong demand for social housing throughout the country, especially in the regions. There's a big demand for social housing. Um, there's favorable tax as well, so now you can claim 100% of your interest, whereas under Labor they had down to 50% non-deductible. Then obviously ACT came in and ACT promoted deductibility of interest, so they got it back up to 80% last year and 100%. So a big thank you to David Seymour for making the changes. He's the one who went after the rule changing the non-deductibility interest to deductibility. It was David Seymour, and we need to give him credit for that. And also, we have tenancy changes. Now we can kick tenants. If tenants are rough, we can kick them out, and this is all in our favor as landlords. So, property investing, guys, now is the right time to get into it. Interest rates are coming down. Um, immigration taps have been turned off, right? So once they're turned on, we're going to have people coming in the country with money, right? The property prices are going to go down, or go up, sorry. So now is the time to actually go out and hunt for the right properties. Now, Than and Maggie will tell you we are out there hunting for properties every day. We're trying to get properties under contracts all the time. And guys, I'll show you examples of what we're doing at the moment, so you'll see it in a sec. Here's an example of a trade we did, which settled last year in 2024. We purchased in November 2023. We renovated the house, and it was a cross-lease property. We paid 526 for it, and the renovation cost was 175,000. So you can see what the house looked like if you look on the top right, and then you can see what the end products looks like. And that's basically 175,000. Our transaction cost was about $8,000. Interest cost plus agents cost was about $46,000. The market value was 875. I think we got between 875 and 900K. So we ended up making a profit of about $100,000 on this site. So that was a good result. But this kind of properties are hard to come by. We don't find them all the time, but you can see what we did here for 175,000. We basically did all the windows, we did the decking, we redid all the lawn and everything. So it wasn't an easy job. It's quite a hard job. Poor Then was on it every day. Um, you know, but trading works, and Then's going to talk about trading more. So and the way to make money in trading is you've got to buy it right on the day. If you buy it for the right price, you've made your money. So we always go to auctions and we can see buyers get carried away. But you can look at the inside, see what it looks like now, once Then's done all the work. So even the toilet bathrooms are amazing. And here's another property that we bought, and this is a long-term hold in November 2023. We bought this property for 1.3 million. We renovated the property for about 20,000, so our total cost was 1.32. It's two dwellings and subdividable section. It's got a social housing list on it for 10 years. Basically, the house was bought and redesigned for disability tenants, and we get roughly 2,500 a week in rent. So that's what we get at the moment because there's customized properties to certain tenants. But this is the kind of properties we chase in the market. Properties we can buy with big land, multi-income as well. Because the more sites or the more properties you can have on a site that you can rent it out, it helps with the cash flow. So we are big followers of properties that are multi-income, and we chase them every day. Here's a recent development we did in Mount Roskill. We ended up building 3 houses. So land and subdivision cost was 1.8 million. The building cost was $2 million. So total cost was 3.8 million. Our market value was about 4.8 million when it came out. So our pre-tax profit was between 1 million to 1.2 million dollars. Now this project took us about 8 to 10 months to finish. It was quite a nice project. Instead of selling, we've decided to keep this project. It's actually doing really well for us. I think it's getting about $4,500 a week in rent. So we chase, cash flow all the time. So if we get good rent, we are all up for that. These are quite big houses, so they're rented for about $1,500 a week. So your family of 5 or 6 living in the house with lots of car park and space for the kids to play. This kind of houses don't exist in Auckland anymore because if people buy this kind of sites, they build 8 to 10 units on them. We end up building 3 houses. Here's a recent purchase that we did in Rotorua. Now, I'm a big fan of Rotorua, or a big fan of any town where there's jobs, there's social housing demand, there's tourists, and Rotorua does it for me because to me, Rotorua is similar to what Queenstown is. There's hardly any houses available for rent. As soon as they become available, it's rented overnight. So here's a property we purchased for 395,000. Guys, look at this. I mean, for 395, I can't even build you this house for 395. Our renovation cost was 60 grand. Our total cost was 455,000. After renovation value was 600K. So you can see we made about 150,000 in 3 months. It's a 900 meter squared site, and we can add 2 more dwellings on the site. And we currently get $600 per week rent. Now, this is the kind of properties I'm chasing every day, and I'll buy as many as I can. These properties are out there, they exist. And if you are a first-time property investor or you are an experienced property investor, that's a deal. Because you can't build those kind of houses for 395K. Even then, because Then's our project manager, he will agree to it. I mean, we're building what then? 3-bedroom townhouses costing us nearly 500 grand to build.
Yeah, close to that. Yeah, close to that. 3 bedroom.
Yeah, and that's townhouses. Here you're buying a big section with a big house and lots of car parks. And then what happened was while we were busy renovating, the next door guy showed up and he said, "Would you like to buy my property as well?" So I think we were owning number 15, then we bought number 17. We purchased that for 360. Renovation funders cost was about $80,000, so our total cost was 440. 855 meters squared, flat side, rent is $600 per week. Now we have 15 and 17 Cypress in Rotorua. We own them both, rented at $1,200 per week. That's pretty good rent. And it's on over 1,700 meters squared of land with 2 rental properties. Again, I can't even build you those houses, 2 houses, for the price we put the property for, including land and building. So this is the kind of assets that's going to go up in value over time. And you'll see it happen. Like places like Tokarua, no one builds houses there because it's so expensive. Building houses in Rotorua or Tokarua is about 30% more expensive than Auckland because the cost of getting your goods freighted in, it gets up there. Like we send most of our tradies from Auckland to do work in Rotorua because it's hard to find tradies in Rotorua. But the rent is amazing. It beats Auckland rent any time of the day. The numbers just stack up. I mean, to buy a property like this in Auckland, you probably look at 900 grand. Your starting point, probably then plus 100 grand for renovation, so you're on $1 million. When Rotorua, we're on 440, and we're getting similar rent to Auckland, $600 per week. So that's why we're buying a lot of properties in Rotorua, and we go to auctions every day and try and pick up properties. Here's one of our best properties that we purchased in Rotorua. This is called Lee Road. We bought this last December. We bought it for 310. Our renovations cost us 150. Our total cost is 460. After renovation value is 700 grand. So that's about 240 grand in equity we've made in 3 months. Refinance at 490, so we get all our money back, plus 30 grand back from the banks because we want to refinance, get as much as we can out. We get $45,000 a year rental income. By the time we pay interest and operating expenses, we're left with 10,000 surplus in the bank account. Now, 10,000, you might say, is not a lot of money. We're not chasing properties for $10,000 a year cash flow positive. What we're chasing here is a property that's on nearly 1,000 square meter land, a flat site that we can put more dwellings on later. That's one. Secondly, we made 240 grand in equity. And this is our long-term hold. So that equity is non-taxable. That's amazing result. So this is the kind of properties we chase. We show up to auctions every day, and we try and buy properties at the number that works for us. Now, guys, if you are after initial meeting, now remember, this is free for new clients. If you are a GRA client, if you'd like a meeting as well, please email Amy and we'll let you know what we can do for you. But whatever it is, we'll do something for you. But if you're new clients, please scan that code and fill in the form and we'll book you in for initial meeting, which is free. Normally it's 500 plus GST an hour. In this particular meeting, we talk about asset protection, tax planning advice, and other accounting services, that we can offer you. And also, we talk about property investments as well. So we talk about, and put it this way, we can talk about anything, even insolvency and anything like that. So if you'd like a free meeting, please scan the code and email us or fill the form out, and Amy will get in touch with you. Now, I just have to give you a warning. First come, first serve, right? We get booked up. So, not kidding with you, we really get booked up. So, if you fill out forms out, we'll try our best to give you appointments ASAP. So, whoever fills the form out first will get a chance. Now, if you'd like to see Maggie and Then as well, please feel free to fill the form out. Maggie and Then are 250 plus GS an hour. Now, I can tell you that's extremely cheap. For what they bring to the table, that's a good offer. That's a good price for Maggie and Then. I use Maggie and Then every day. And if you have a meeting with one of us, one of the partners at GRA, we are 500 plus GS an hour. One of the partners are consultants. So if you're a new client, you get it for free. The first hour is free. So why property, guys? Why are we talking about properties? Why are we not talking about share investments and all of that? To be honest, I don't understand share investments. I try my best to understand it, but it never goes through my head. So can you save for retirement? Say you are 45 years old, right? And your target is to save $2 million in savings, and you have 20 years to save. So that's 100 grand a year. So you basically need to earn 250,000 and stay single all your life, right? That's what's going to happen here. Then, am I right? And on 250K, you will pay 74,000 PAYE, 76,000 living expense. Because if you are someone in Auckland and Wellington or any city, it's expensive now to live. I couldn't believe I was in Singapore. People pay $40,000 a month in rent. That's insane, and that's what they charge. 100K savings a year. So that you got to be on a strict budget to get 100K savings a year. Now I can tell any one of you, if you start saving $100,000 a year, that's your savings. After 4 years, you'll feel sorry for yourself because you'll feel like I worked too hard. I've saved myself 400 grand. I need a new car. I need a good holiday. This is human nature. As soon as the money is available, people start spending the money. It's just what happens. And this is why I need to control Then. Maggie's okay, but Then's a big spender.
Hey, you work hard, right? You gotta help treat yourself time to time.
Then felt sorry for him last year, so he got him bought himself a new ute, which is okay. We get to use it. Hey, Then.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So $100,000 a year is impossible to save. You're not going to do it. You'll never stick to it. But when you buy properties, you have a mortgage to pay, and that's what we refer to as forced savings. And once you have forced savings because you have to pay monthly mortgage payments, you basically your equity goes up in value as you're clearing more debt. Property investment options. So if you do property investing correctly, you can make money by buying properties for less than real market value. Now that's one of the first things I do when I buy properties. I try and buy properties discounted because I want instant growth. I want instant money. I know that's my instant equity and I've made my money. Keeping properties for long term to get capital gains, and that's something we're good at doing. We hold on to our properties for as long as we can. Renting or leasing for rental income, that's something we do because when you buy long-term property investments, you rent and lease and you get passive income from it. And if you do improvements, renovation, repairs, you add value to the property. The value of the property goes up, so you can refinance and get your money out. In fact, what I'm trying to say to you is if you buy properties for the right price, initially it'll cost you money, but once the project's finished, you revalue, the chances are you might be able to pull all your capital out. So you've got the property for free. Now you tell me which investment in the world is for free? Hardly anything, right? You want to buy shares, you've got to put capital in. Anything you want to do, you've got to put capital in. Properties, you put capital in, but if you buy it for right price, you do the right renovation, revalue, you get your money out. So there's two types of investing with properties, passive and active, and we're going to talk about that. Passive investing is basically you accumulate the right properties at the right price, something that I do long term. I always accumulate the right properties. When you have enough, you no longer have to work. So basically, you retire off your passive income. You You might get monthly 5 or 10 grand as your surplus. You can retire with that. And if you are focused, and we'll show you examples, Maggie, Ethan, and I, it only takes you good 7 to 10 years to set up a correct investment portfolio. And we'll show you how we've done it. Once I got into property investing, basically within 7 years, I basically hit retirement. I could have retired back then when I was 30 years old or 32 years old. I just didn't want to retire because I like what I do. And and once you do property investing, correctly, long term, you do quality investment leads to wealth growth. So your asset goes up in value because you're buying good properties, and it creates intergenerational wealth to pass on. So you can pass it down to your kids. If you don't like your kids, you can pass it down to your grandkids. So you can do that. So it allows you to make choices, allows you to do less hours at work if you want. That's what property investing allows you to do. On the other hand, someone like me, I do property investing 7 days a week, so I'm always on the phone with everyone. I like property investing. I like waking up and visiting sites and seeing what's happening, or calling thin or busy thin.
Yes, for us, it becomes second nature because I haven't done it for so long.
Yes, yes, exactly. And here's an example of passive income or passive investing. So here's a property we paid $707,000, a front unit and a back unit. Our renovation cost and our subdivision cost was about 42 grand, so it came to 749. Our market value back then when we bought it came back at 1.1. It's probably worth about 1.2, 1.3 now. Our instant equity was $350,000. That's a lot of money to make within a couple of weeks. So we made 32%. Refinanced, got all our capital back out, and we bought more property with that money. I can show you what we bought. Uh, Currently, it's rented for about $1,200 a week. We haven't updated the numbers. So let's say we get 57,000 a year. It's been rented to a social housing provider. After our operating expenses, we're yielding $50,000, and after our interest cost at 5% because we fixed it at 5%, 37 grand. Um, we end up with $12,000 as a surplus. And what we do, we actually 70% finance here. We end up with 24,000 as a surplus. What I'm doing with that 24 is reducing our debt level on the property down. Any surplus cash, I just push it back to the banks because I like to pay off my debt. Something I like doing is paying principal off, and I have all the loans on principal and interest for repayments. Now, active investment. Basically, this is where you renovate worn out properties and you sell them for profit, right? You buy a do up and you buy it for the right price. You do up, on sell it, and you make a profit. You fix houses with issues such as unconsented works. Sometimes it's only just a carport that needs to be removed, or sliding doors that need to be removed. And we do reclad leaky houses as well, and sell once it's completed. Now you got to be careful if you're doing reclad and leaky houses. Be very careful. You got to do a very good DD. The chances are you might have to actually just demolish the property and build a brand new one. So be careful with reclads. Rebuild rundown houses and build new ones. That's something we do where we basically demolish the house and build 3 or 4 brand new houses, like that example I showed you. And profits from our active investing goes towards boosting our cash flow, and doing other investments and lending from one active investment strategy going into another one, and what to look out for. That's what we do, and we do enjoy the cash flow as well. You make good profits. Here's an example of basically active property investment. This is a property we bought in Henderson, front side, back side. We paid 1.37 for it. We sold it for 1.810. Our renovation and subdivision cost was 50,000. Marketing fee was about 21,000. Transaction cost was 8,000. Settlement cost and 6 months holding cost at 6% was 41,000. So our total cost came to about 1.5 million. We banked 314,000 profit. That's not bad for 6 months worth of work. Now, this kind of deals hang around in Auckland all the time. The problem is me and Then just get to the party a couple of weeks late, or a couple of days late, or a couple of hours late. So when you're out hunting all the time, you will find them. And we did basically hardly any work on this site. We just sat on it, completed the subdivision, and sold the properties. So our profit after tax and GST was 267,000. That's pretty good. That's pretty impressive. Now we got Chris coming on. Chris, can you hear us? We've been having Chris on hold for a while. Chris, Then can you pass the slides to Chris? So
Yeah,
Chris
sure.
is while we're passing the slides back to Chris, Chris is a good friend of ours, and this is the first time he's come to our presentation. Um,
Evening.
and and he's one of the best mortgage brokers I've ever met, or I refer to him normally as the banker. And he does a lot for us. Now, then I think we're looking at some weird website. You
Well,
know.
I know you like those website Sal.
Sorry, actually, it's your
Sorry,
screen.
everyone. My bad sense of humor.
It's actually your screen, Chris, we were staring at.
Of course it was.
Yeah. Well, Than's just loading the slides because it's windy out there. It's taking a while to load slides. Um, and Chris has actually joined this presentation for the first time. Chris, are you enjoying listening to us, or you?
No. I will say this quickly while hopefully fans trying to get my slides organized. Is that for me it's quite a privilege because I've known Matt Gilligan, who obviously founded GRA for a long time. But for those of you, just while I'm giving a quick introduction, I set KPM up back 18 years ago, and it was only about a year, 18 months after that I actually ended up on the Gilligan Road floor. And that was a recession which makes the current one look minor. For those of you who have kind of got into property in the last few years and think this is hard, that time that we were going through back then was a lot harder. I was just literally while Fan and Salesh were looking at things, trying to look at property numbers. And right now, if you go on Trade Me, there's 62 properties for mortgagee sale, but there's all about 49,000 properties. Sorry, there's 69, I think 62 properties up for mortgagee sale. There's 49,000 total properties up for sale. I remember when I first hit the GRA floor, 5% of all sales that happened were going by mortgagee sale. If that makes sense, that's how hard hit the market was. And
Yeah.
if I can sit there quickly before I kind of give a little spiel, which I suppose kind of ties into the slide, and that's why I think both us, KPM and GRA kind of work well together, is when you're going through the good times, you can have an accountant who make things looks easy, and bankers definitely will throw money at you. But I've got an umbrella that like banks give you money when it's sunny and they take it away once it starts raining. And I think it's that case of that you want to have kind of good advice like wrapped around you, that when things go wrong, you know everything's you kept safe. But you don't know if you kept safe until things go wrong. And I still go back to those first times that I was on the floor back when Salesh has become he's my personal accountant. He's become a very close personal friend because he got me out of a couple of sticky things back in the day, didn't you, Sal?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people in recession got into sticky issues, did I?
And I say this quite publicly. We went through a pretty hard time. Being a mortgage broker who specializes in dealing with investors, starting a business in 2007. At the time, I thought I was a rock star. 12 months later, it was not that easy. But I had some very, very good advisors around me who got me around it. And Salesh and Matt Gilligan and GRA as a firm in particular were that firm. And I think it's a case of what I'd always say. I before tonight, I was literally having an hour conversation with someone sitting there saying, like, for me, it's a case of when you're trying to set up, and if you want to set yourself up for success, do it properly. Don't, there's too many people who don't pay dollars and they get into things, and then down the track they wonder why they've got themselves into trouble. And so I'm the biggest proponent ever. They've become really good friends over time, but I'm not saying it for that reason. I'm a massive fan of Gilligan Road because in my time, we're a pretty chunky mortgage advice business ourselves, but they are the only advice firm I have dealt with in New Zealand who will include a combination of tax advice, proper asset protection advice, which is completely enveloped with really, really good property advice. There's so many people who come from a basis of theory. So you'll find there's a lot of accountants who may have bought a house back in 20 years ago and they think they know some theory. As you've seen with Salesh's portfolio, these people are out there buying, doing, negotiating. They are so at the current market, it's not funny.
Yeah. And to be honest, like, we understand properties in depth, but we use the right bankers. So as accountants, we can't function without Chris. And Chris is well connected to the banks, so that's one guy you want to know. Now, all the guys that are listening to us, remember, this is probably a $1,500 an hour free advice for you guys. So make sure to bombard us with lots of questions and we'll stop and answer them. But I'll let Chris take over. Chris, you should be able to control.
Yeah, your mouse should work now. If you go up and down, it should move there.
Chris,
There you go. And Salesh has been helping a lot of people from getting out of sticky places, I hear. So yeah. So
Oh, Pam needed that little dig, didn't he? Okay. So there might be a bit of a delay, so I apologize on the slides if there's a bit of a delay. But to me, in my time in property finance, I hope anyone who's listening tonight takes the effort to, the cost. It's not a cost. It's a cost if you do not join property school, because it is the cheapest advice in the whole bloody market, to be honest. If you are basically getting into investment and you're even here, you should be doing it. So one of the things, and I wrote a ebook called The One Bank Trap. It completely was taken from Matthew Gilligan when he taught me split banking back in the GFC, which was a very, very painful recession where we're being, for those of you who over time might get to meet Salesh, I actually spent 6 years, 2 doors down from Salesh, and I got to watch in one of the hardest recessions this country's ever gone through, people's finances get decimated by not structuring their mortgages correct. And what was the best thing, probably of everything I've ever learned being in mortgage broking, what Matthew Gilligan taught me, which was what we call split banking. I've reframed that into the one bank trap. For those of you who want to learn more about it from my point of view, from a financier, if you go to my website, which is krispedersen.co.nz, you'll find this ebook, and you'll find a big part written by Matthew Gilligan, who is still the legend, along with Salesh and all that, in regards to how to do this. So just a quick thing, and we'll get into this more in property school, but it's worth a quick, I suppose, run over. What happens with a lot of people is and some of you will probably be in this position, but you start off with a personal home, you get some equity, and you think you want to go down this road of property investment. And you bowl down to the same bank who's already got your home and go, yep, I want to do this. What banks will often do is go, yep, we can 100% finance you into an investment property. And often what happens, I suppose, over time is people, people continue to grow a portfolio with the same bank. Now, when times are good, and now that I'm a bit older, you kind of go through the ups and down cycle. So as an example, and we went through a period, for those of you who might have bought some property or at least kept an eye on the market through the up part of the COVID years. So this was, once we got out of the first lockdown in COVID, we're thinking kind of mid-2020, sort of back into 21. Finance was really easy to get. Banks were throwing out money out there. For those of you who have been maybe around other property cycles, you've probably maybe been around friends, family, where money's been really easy to get, and banks at times make it look really easy. And often they'll go through these stages where they look like they're 100% financing you into investment properties, but it's not actually completely correct. Behind the scenes, what they're actually doing is they're hooking all of the properties together. Yeah, so I wanted to throw this one up because this is it sounds like an old story, and some of you may think things have got easier, they've got a lot harder. This is my first, I've spoken at Gilligan Row events for the best part of 15 years, but this is the first time I've been involved with one of these evenings, and it's a real privilege. And for those of you who are probably at this level, this is why I would be talking to the Gilligan Row. This is what Matthew taught me early on, and it protected a lot of people. So this is an apartment block in Auckland, and it's called Beaumont Quarter. Effectively, it was flogged by a unscrupulous company called Blue Chip. Some of those of you who may or may not be online who are a bit older may remember this. And effectively, this was a leasehold apartment block. So what I mean by leasehold is that you were buying the building, you did not own the land. So back then, the average apartment purchase price was about $450,000. And what happened is a year or two after people buying them, the ground rent went up about 400%. And the average purchase price, as I said, was worth about $450K, went down to being worth about $80,000. So I take myself back to the time that I was on, I'd just been on the Gilligan Row floor back then. And what happened is I had a couple of clients come in over time. And these were not clients I or Gilligan Row had anything to do with getting into this development, I remember going and taking advice from either Matthew or people on the GRA floor. And what happened is the first client had bought one of these obviously really bad investments. He had then gone to his bank manager and he was going through some cash flow problems. So just repeat, he bought it for 50,000. That was now worth about 80, 90K. And so he was going through some problems. He'd had that cross-secured or into a number of other properties with the one bank. Goes to his bank manager and says, I want to sell some property down. It's good for you, Mr. Bank Manager. And it's also good for me because then I can sell a property and I get some money in the back of my pocket to get through which was a very hard recession. The banker comes back and says, we love the idea of you selling down, that any of those proceeds we are going to take. And they could do that because behind the scenes, while banks make it very easy to give you the money at the start, they actually make it very easy to protect themselves. And they'll make sure that they are getting their hooks into everything over time. And so in this case here, that client wasn't going to get any money, the bank would. Now the second client, what he'd done, and he'd done this on the advice of Matt, was he effectively had taken advice from Matt in previous years. He had then left and he'd gone and taken advice from someone else, and he ended up buying into one of these properties when he should never have done it. But the one bit of good advice he had done was the initial advice. But what he'd done is he'd borrowed 20% of the initial purchase price, so 20% of 450K, being $90,000 against his home, and he borrowed 360K from a secondary bank to complete the purchase. And then what happened, of course, is the property value, the ground rent went flying up, the property value went flying down, and the second bank who held the security had a 360K mortgage against a property that was only worth nothing, basically. So they started putting a whole lot of pressure on him. Now, long story short, he took advice. He was able to go back and tell that second bank to basically get, two options. You can either come after me, which they could have done, but if they come after him, they would have lost a whole lot of money. And the second client was in a better cash position than the first client. So in this case here, what happened is the second bank just sit there, grit their teeth, and left him alone, because they realized they were in a bad position overall. They didn't have a hook back into his personal home. What we were able to do, and this was in a market which I personally believe is quite equivalent to the current market we're in. So this stage here, by the time we've gone through all the advice, the clients meeting me, but I think like mid to late 2009, early 2010, can't quite remember when. It was a market which feels quite recessionary, but you could tell that probably prices had probably bottomed out, and there were opportunities there. So in this case here, keep in mind we had a lender which was not going to lend the client any more money, but we could basically park this horrible apartment off with that. The client's cash flow position was still good, so we could tap back into the equity he had, bring a third lender in, and go from there. Do you want to just jump forward, Pen? So just before while Pen's doing that, I suppose one of the things which I would say to all of you is where GRA is amazing is they are very good at bringing all those concepts in that I said before, at taking in consideration tax, asset planning, and strategy. Now, sorry, and this is my fault. I literally only threw some slides through the GRA just before we got online tonight, but it was probably some very quick interest rate commentary, and this is some of the stuff that we get into in more depth in property school, but also on a one-on-one basis. And it's probably, I just thought it was worth some quick commentary on how I am looking at interest rates right now. At the moment, we've got a very, very volatile interest rate market. And keep in mind, these slides are about a week and a half old, because literally we've had banks update in the last 2 days. But what we get asked a lot by clients is, oh, those 2-year rates at 4.99, we're looking really good, Chris. Should we take those or whatever? Now, for a long time, I suppose, and to give you an idea of how I've been looking at interest rates, probably for the last 6 to 9 months, I've been looking at the 6-month rate until quite recently, because you've been trying to run interest rates down. And then at the previous official cash rate drop, we suddenly ended up in a situation where the 12 and 24-month rates were looking quite similar to this, where you had a 12-month rate around 5.15 and a 24-month rate around 4.99. Fan, can you just jump onto the next slide? Hopefully it's come through better than this has. And can you just skip through this? But I just don't know what's come through. Yeah, skip through it so I can explain it. So the way I try and explain interest rates to clients when I'm looking at a market is, what do I think is going to happen, not just now, but over time? So what I looked at personally was when I was looking at, yes, this one. Thank you. That slide. Thank you. Okay. So what happened is a lot of clients started asking, why are you going for the 12-month over the 6-month rate, right? So what I started to look at was, and sorry, it's a bit hard. Some of this hasn't come through that well. What I start to look at is what I call a break-even analysis. So I take the interest rate, time it by the interest rate, extrapolate that out over the period that we're looking at, and then we compare that over different interest rate terms. So as an example, if we're looking at a $1 million mortgage, I think is what I use, and we look at a interest rate that we could get at that stage for 12 months of 5.15, that means an interest rate of interest cost of $51,500. We took the same $1 million and we used the 6-month rate at that stage. And sorry, Fan, I can't remember what it was in the previous. I think it was 5.69. That would have been, was it 5.69? Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Keep in mind that we're looking at only 6 months cost. Then we're looking at 28,250. So what we're trying to do is go, okay, we've got a 12-month cost if we take a 1-year rate. We've got a 6-month cost on this. What would the 6-month rate have to be in 6 months' time to be an equivalent interest rate? Does it make sense? So what we're trying to go, this is a 12-month cost, this is a 6-month cost, real interest cost, and then go, what would the 6-month rate have to be? Now, for me, first things I was looking at was, do I believe, and keep in mind this is probably a few weeks old, do I believe we're going to get a 6-month fixed rate in 6 months' time if I fix my mortgage now for 4.61%? No, I don't. I do not believe that in the slightest. So this was one of my big reasons for moving from 6-month rates to 12-month rates. Now, can you move to the other slide as well, which is a rate comparison? Yeah, this one here. So this is when we started to look at a 12-month rate in comparison to 24. So what the banks have all started to do in the last little while is they started to price all of their really aggressive pricing on the 2-year term. So again, $1 million mortgage, what a lot of the banks have been doing, and this has changed in the last couple of days, so I do apologize, but I think my advice has been right. $1 million, a lot of it was priced around 5.15%. So if you look at that 12-month cost, if you sat there in the last couple of months and took your $1 million pricing at an interest rate of 5.15, you were paying $51,500. If you're taking the 2-year pricing, you're going to pay that top $99,800 over 2 years. What I looked at is if you took that 1 year, what would the 1-year rate have to be in 12 months' time? And the break-even rate would be 4.83%. Do I believe in 12 months' time it could be there? Yes, I do. I really do. And Sal, do you follow interest rates? I'll be interested to know what you think here. And then
I personally think that a yearly rate will definitely drop down to 4.83. It's already down to 4.
Yeah, and so for me, and one thing I love what Sal said before, because Sal thinks long term. Too many investors think short term. You've got to think long term when you're investing and stuff like this. And so for me, if it makes sense, what we try and do is we look at some of the break-even costs when we're doing this analysis to go what is best. But Sal and I talk about this type of stuff all over, very often, don't we, Sal? And
yes.
The stuff we're also talking about is, I was talking to Matt last week and kind of going, well, we've got someone like Donald Trump playing havoc with the markets. There's a very slight chance we could get a very low 5-year rate. Now, if a low 5-year rate came out, if I saw a 5-year rate right now at 4.09, I'd put all my debt on 5 years. Would you do that, Sal? I haven't spoken to you.
At 4.09? Or
4.99. I'd take a 5-year rate right now, 4.9.
Oh, that's cheap. I mean, you can't go wrong with 4.99.
Yeah. But this is the kind of stuff I suppose we'll get into the chat. So,
yeah.
Sorry, I've got a bit more in depth in regards to this, but I thought I'd throw that out some of the comments.
Where do you see the rate in the next 6 to 12 months? I mean, I see the 1-year rate could go below the 4% mark.
I don't think we'll go that low because, sorry, I'm just trying to think this one through. So we've got an official cash rate of, sorry, I'm trying to think it through. There's so many variables because we've just lost the worst Reserve Bank governor in New Zealand's history. This guy hated property investment, and this is a
Bad news. Bad news.
worst person ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I reckon him and Grant Robertson destroyed the country, to be honest.
The part I like is, in my opinion, we've got a party which is more pro property investment. And keep in mind, for those of you who don't follow this stuff, it's what Than and Salesh and I do. This is what drives the markets. Is I sit there and go, keep in mind the current government gets to decide who the next Reserve Bank governor is. Now, there's been a temporary appointee, but while the current government's in, they're going to pick someone, and they're going to pick someone. Hopefully, I don't know who will be more in favour of the way that we see things. If that makes sense.
Yep.
The previous government picked someone who was anti-property, very anti-property.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to have our capital locked in for once in a 200-year event, this is rubbish.
Oh, and people like Salesh and I know some of the chief economists from the banks, and I've spoken to a couple of them, and their first response is, how good is this? We're going to have some things relaxed. The banks, forget what you think about the banks. The banks have actually had their hands tied because the Reserve Bank has been wanting them to stop lending in the parts of the markets around investment, property investment. And now hopefully what's going to happen is you've got a government who's more saying, we want you guys to lend there. We're going to take some of the restrictions off, and hopefully that will provide more capital into that market.
Yep. Thank you, Chris. And if you want to get hold of Chris, that's his contact details. You can get hold of him. He's a good mortgage broker. Like, put it this way, guys, even if you don't need funding, your funding is fine. Why don't you just get Chris to check it for you? There's no harm, in doing that. What do you think, then?
Yeah, the other thing that I've been telling a lot of people is, and Chris, you probably noticed, is the test rates have come down. So there's a lot of people sitting there going, I can't afford the next property because the bank's not going to lend me the money. So I'm like, hey, look, test rates are coming down. This is the best time to relook at, talk to your broker, Chris, and then, see if they can go and get a deal, because look, there's a lot of stock. You can negotiate hard. And if you get a banker or broker to, get the money for you, then, hey, you could do these deals and the numbers that, we're showing you.
Yeah. Or Chris, can you talk about that offer that's coming out from one of the banks, or is it still confidential?
The non-bank lender?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was mentioning Sal a week ago and stuff like this, and what this is my personal belief is what's happened is that we've had a market get very regulated, and if you regulate a market, there's still a whole lot of investors out there who want to buy, and so then what the market does is people come in and they fill that gap and create solutions for the investors who can't get the money off the banks. And so this is the kind of stuff we get into more at property school. But for those of you who don't maybe understand all the rules, from a deposit point of view or equity, you need a minimum of 30% to buy an existing investment property. And so I measured Sal and said, how nuts is this? And we've had a funder come out and said, we'll let you, some of your clients get in with a minimum of 10%. So let's say you're sitting there with only $100,000 deposit. $100,000 is only going to get you into a $333,000 property off the top of my head, something like that. You're not going to be buying much. Suddenly, you might have been capped out. This fund is coming back in, and maybe if you can tick the rest of their criteria, you can buy a property up to $1 million. And there's other stuff. I just heard Than talk about test rates. This is one of the things we talk about. Don't want to complicate this too much tonight, but in my opinion, doing what I do, the biggest restriction, and Than, you're on this market, so I'll be interested to know what you think, is, in my opinion, the biggest hurdle getting through bank funding has been how banks assess servicing.
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%.
And so I haven't had a chance to talk to you yet, that this lender's working everything off actuals. So what that means is that rather than banks working everything off high test rates and principal interest, they're working off everything on actuals, principal interest. It creates millions of dollars of more borrowing potential, if that makes sense. It's not something which I'll get into tonight with everyone, but it's sexy. Sorry, it's to me, I've got my exceptionally biased finance hat on. But to me, from having been through a couple of property cycles where I'm very excited, is when finance relax, it brings more buyers into the market, more buyers into the market pushes up property prices. And to me, that starts the next up cycle. That's my opinion.
Now this second tier lender that Kris is talking about, they're actually doing a 30-year loan term. So you're not forced to sell within 2-3 years, isn't it, Kris?
Correct, but what's also good is there's these rules which apply to the banks, but I've got to be careful about complicating things tonight. But there's really cool solutions we're working on at the moment. Very cool.
Yeah, so what Kris is saying, he's got access to bankers who can fund you and guide you through it, and that's what he's trying to say. So that's important for us, Yeah.
Fantastic. Exciting news. I might have to hit you up, Kris, soon.
I'm looking forward to it.
We'll look at the actuals.
Well, guys, that's Kris's details there. But we can, if you somehow don't get his details, feel free to email Amy, and she'll introduce you to Kris. Now we're going to move on, Kris. So you can stay back, Kris, and
I'll stay back if you want me for questions later on.
Yeah, okay. You can listen to us if you're bored watching TV or whatever you're doing. Yeah. This is guys. Now we're going to talk about Maggie. Maggie is actually online, but she can't talk. She's been coughing and sneezing. So just to give you a quick one-page overview on Maggie, Maggie has worked really hard in the last 10 years. She's created this amazing portfolio, basically starting with nothing. She started with a 300 grand overdraft facility with her partner, and they had one home and a little bit of equity they were playing with at the time, and a small rental income of 22,000. So this was 10 years ago. And now Maggie is literally sitting on $4 million of equity, a beautiful family home, right? So remember, she didn't have a family home, so she's got a family home now, 10 years later. 8 dwellings plus 7 sites. She gets $323,000 a year in rental income, has development potential on 4 properties, right? And she's really lowered her debt down, like absolutely lowered it next to nothing. So she's doing really well. So currently she's got 7 sections, and she's going to do up to 14 dwellings on them. That's what I think it is. But yeah, so there you go. So Maggie's done really well. Now, if Maggie was on today and she'll be talking, she'll give you more detailed. Now, what I want to just point to you guys here is, sticking to a long-term strategy here. Maggie started in 2015 or 16. And 10 years later, she's sitting on debt-free assets, family home, and everything. And it has cost her no money. Because what you got to remember is how she invested her money. She refinanced and got all equity out. That's the beauty of doing investments correctly. You borrow against the right assets, do them up, refinance, and take your money out. Then can we move forward? I've got control, right?
I think it's my turn.
Go on, then.
So thank you, Salesh. The reason I'm here today is mainly to share my journey as what property has done for me, because started with nothing, and for myself, I've got into property through active investing, like the example that Salesh shared earlier, where bought a property, added value by subdividing and selling or renovating, and that was my starting point. I didn't own a home, but I got education in the sense of I needed to do this, to follow this strategy, so that I can build my cash pool, so that I can buy the right assets to hold on for the long term. So my journey, before I go into the details of how I started, but I want to share one of the examples of the deal that I've done in the past, and this was in Bridgeley Rise in Goodwood Heights. It's a transformation. It was a large 2-bedroom home which we converted into a 4-bedroom house. It was fully run down. It had seen better days. So we bought it at an auction, did the whole renovation, new carpet, new kitchen, new bathroom, paint inside out. So that converted into a nice family home that someone can actually buy, move in, and start living immediately. So, these are the skill sets that, I've learned over time and know what to do, in the sense of, okay, this is what is needed to be done in order to sell that property for that value and the cost in transforming that. So more about the transformation and looking into the numbers is like, that property, we bought it for 824,500. The renovation cost was just under about 100,000. The real estate agent fee that we refer to as marketing fee was about 31,000. The transactional costs, lawyers' costs, interest. So we held this property for 4 months. So that's from buying, getting access, renovating the property, putting it on the market, and selling it on the other end for 1.170. So the total cost to us was 975, and we sold it for 1.170. So the profit before tax and GST was 194,000. Take GST out, 167,000, just over 400, 4 months. So this is something that I didn't do overnight. I woke up and I said, hey, I'm going to go buy the next property. This is something that I was able to learn over time and, build my network, doing assessments. And these are the stuff that we go through in property school, how one find property like this, how they assess the numbers, and, just teaching you what we do when we look at properties. But a bit of a background on my story is, back in, long time ago, 2015, yes, that's when I started. I was a sales rep. I was in the freight industry, and look, I love enjoy what I was doing. And for me at that time, I was working through, the sales channel. I was, given a company car, laptop, a cell phone, and it was fantastic. I thought, okay, I'm moving up, but I didn't realize I was taking more work home. But I had nothing else to fall on. When someone loses their job, or if I get hit by a car, what's there for me? And so I've got into thinking, what other opportunities is here in New Zealand? And property is something that, once you start looking, you look at different avenues, and it's something that came very common. And a lot of people that I talked to, they said, look, I've got an investment property, I'm doing this. And so for me, it was, okay, I need to know more about that, because I did not know anything about property when I started, even had a look at what a sales and purchase agreement looks like. So luckily for myself, I have saved some money and had access to 130K of revolving credit facility from my family. And that seminar was my, a boot, kick me going, hey, look, there's other people doing it. What's holding you from doing it? Is, okay, the education side, the confidence side. Okay, let's get the education side ticked, and then slowly build my confidence to make that transaction. Because buying a house it's one of the biggest transactions in someone's life. So I need to make sure that I don't screw that up. And so 2015 did my first deal. And that was, for me, it was the greatest thing, is because seeing everyone else doing a deal, seeing the numbers is fantastic. But for myself to see the deal, do it for myself, and see the money in my account was a real eye-opener, in the sense it got me more hungry, because all I had to do was get better at it. So I made 65K profit in my first deal. And for me, the next year, while working full-time, was to go out there and do more deals. So I set myself a target. I'm quite driven in that sense. For my laser focus, this is what I want to achieve. Then I'm really hungry. But that's everyone, right? You visualize it, you want it. Look at yourself, you'll get there. So 2016, 200K profit. And then I resigned from my job that time in 2017 and got into property full-time. So for me, it was that time was just to get better at what I'm doing. And so more deals. At the same time, my numbers got bigger, because I was actually getting better at identifying these good deals. Plus my network of agents that I deal with, once you do a deal, they know that you're the real deal. So they start bringing in, properties to look at, because they get paid when they sell a property to their buyer. So that was kind of a snapshot of my property transactions for the years. I'm going to add 24 in it. But the good thing is that starting from zero, but not just getting focused on when just trading, taking that money and putting it into all property. So like back in 2016, that's when I went and bought my first home and a rental property, in which I'll show you later. But then doing more deals, build up my capitals or cash to buy the next deal and next deal, so that, building up for future, so that one day I don't have to, if I have to go on holiday, rental income is going to come through in weekly. So looking at my long-term properties, so this is one of the first properties that I bought in 2016. So this was where you can see it's a home and income. In the front was a property that was run down. At the back, it was moderate. It was rentable. So for me, by that time, was no strangers to renovating a property. So went and took a builder in there, did a building inspection and said, look, the bones are all solid. It's just cosmetic. So immediately bought it, put an offer, cash and conditional. Luckily, I had my finance, everything set up and did the renovation. 8 weeks later, we moved in and rented the property at the back. So that was my first home. And I still have it, and I got future plans into developing that side. So while I was there, living there, you get to know your neighbor. And I went in there and said, hey, look, if you're ever selling, if you're looking to move out, come and have a chat to me. If I'm in a position to buy your property, I will love the opportunity. And I didn't expect anything out of it. And it's just a matter of putting it out there. And one day she came knocking and goes, oh, Than, I'm going to move. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry to see you because you're such a great neighbor. And then she's like, yeah, I'm just looking to downsize. I remember you saying that you wanted to buy this place. And I said, look, yeah, if it's okay with you, I said, this is what I could get. Obviously, it was a private, so we had to get a registered valuation. So she saved some money on real estate agents fee, and I've saved money on the buying price, plus the headache of having an open home, having to have the look at having the property tidy and so forth. I need a little bit of work, but once again, I was no stranger to getting that property up to scratch. Now I've still got my eye on the rear property at the back, and for me, the reason for that is because this piece of land has good development potentials, and which is what I'm planning to do later on. And my active or the training that I have and what I do every single time I look at properties, even the home that I look at, I didn't go and buy a new build. I wanted to buy something that I could add value and increase the value or the equity so that I could use that money or take that money, go to the bank and you reuse it again. So that's the family home there. And then there's another property in Fawana in South Auckland, which I bought. Once again, needed work, but did it up and I have it being rented, and I could build 3 standalone houses there. So that's the future plans on those rental. But just to give you an example, that's lot one, the first property that we bought. I could remove those houses and build 6 dwelling there. And we're working through consent, so that's going to be there. And that's a great thing. I could do it now or do it later because we've already bought the land and we own it. So at the moment, we've got 2 income rental coming through. And once I've got more money in the piggy bank, I could go there and do this. So, that's the great thing about buying properties right. Even my personal home, that purchased for 965, did a renovation 185,000 K. The current CV is about 1.65, market value 1.4, probably could get a little bit more. It is running done very well, but just looking on desktop value as what it is worth on paper, it's we've got 250K worth of equity, and that's just done by buying right and putting the hard work and getting doing the renovation. So that's the key thing that I know I like to give way to people is that if you're not sure what to do or how to get there, is to get yourself the education, because everyone can do it. It's just that fear or lack of knowledge is that what's is holding people back. And that's what held me back in the past. But luckily for myself, 2015 was the turning point for me, and no regrets. Sal, you here?
Sorry, Ben, I was just having a little nap.
Nap. I was gonna bore you.
No, I was just actually reading some of my meetings for tomorrow. Guys, I have to say to you, Than's one of the smartest guys I've met with investments and that. Than's started with nothing, literally zero, and he took the risk of putting his life savings online, which is doing property tutor, wasn't it, back then?
Back then, yes, property tourism.
Yeah, he spent 46 grand on that course.
First year was 35,000, yes.
Yeah, and second year?
Another 35,000.
Then failed his first year.
I got my one.
He had the lowest IQ playing class. Lucky he met us. Which is like 2 levels back up.
With accountants now.
Yeah.
Is that look great?
But yeah, but then I had to put his life savings on risk here to go and learn about properties, and it's actually helped him. If you look at Then's affairs, if he just went and sold his 2 rental properties, he's got 3. If he sold 2 of them, he could be just debt free on his family home and live happily ever after. But there's no point. He understands the long term game here. You got to carry debt, good debt. They're not bad debt; they're good debt, and he's going to carry that forward. And something that I learned over time as well. I was quite risk adverse and all of that, but you got to take risk, and you got to take calculated risk. It's simple as that. If you calculate your risk and say, I can take this risk, and if I lose this money, I don't mind, but I will slap myself for losing the money, but I'm still going to go to sleep and not hit myself. So that's what we call, calculated strategy and debt. So just so back on me again, where I started and things like this. So I'm a partner here at GRA. I started working at GRA in 2007 as a graduate accountant. So back in the days when you graduate, you have clients come in with a shoebox, a couple of boxes, they throw it at you and go do the data entry and GST returns, and get the numbers to us. The beauty about doing GST returns manually and doing data entry was I got to see numbers and I got to understand numbers, to the point where I could know what the numbers were if I clicked it on my calculator. It's understanding numbers and doing things. I think that was one of the most important skill as an accountant we had. Nowadays everything is on Xero or MYB, and the data are just passed through softwares. So I was broke back then with 47K debt. I still remember this day very well. I borrowed about 12. I had 30,000 student loan. I borrowed 16,000 to buy a black Ford Falcon because I live out west, and I borrowed another grand to put some mags on, so black on black. So it was the coolest thing to ever do. So that was my starting point, 47K debt, and today I do 50K of property per month in growth. So every month my affairs grow by $50,000. Either I'll do up and sell properties, or I'll do up and hold on to properties and create equity. That's what I do. But every chance I get, I grow my portfolio minimum by $50,000 a month. And when you do that, I'll show you what happens. So in 2007, I started with 47K debt. 2010, I bought my first property. Right today, 2024-25, we have $44 million property in the portfolio. And the reason we have $44 million of property in the portfolio is because we buy good assets, we create instant equity, right? And roughly my number is minimum $50,000 a month in equity, but I'm growing more than that. So you could sit here and look at that 47K debt initially I started with as my bad debt, but it wasn't really my bad debt. It was a chance to understand what debt was about, understanding loan and all of that. Like, I've got a mate and he goes to me, man, how can you borrow like 10, 15 million and not be nervous? I was like, no, that you're getting the point wrong here. When I borrow 10 or 15 million dollars, it's micromanaged to each investment. So, for example, if I'm buying a $600,000 project and I'm borrowing 350 or 400, I'm looking at it. Is it going to be cash flow positive? Can that portfolio pay its loan off? That's how I do my funding. Hopefully I haven't confused anyone. So if the market value of the asset is, say, 600,000, the debt is 400,000, the rent is $700 a week. I know that property can pay itself off, including the banks and the rates and everything else, and I don't have to put any money in. Those are the kind of assets I chase, and I micromanage my debt to each investment. And at the moment we have $400,000 or $500,000 a year cash flow positive on the whole portfolio. Now that's a lot of money. That's after your principal has been paid, interest has been paid, all your operating expenses has been paid. We're still banking $400,000 to $500,000, and all we're doing with the money is we're just clearing debt up. We're not taking any dividends out. We're just clearing debt, and that's what we are focusing on. So my advice to anyone is, if you can afford to pay off debt, pay your debt off. If you can. If you can't afford to, it's okay. It's okay to go on interest only. It doesn't hurt. So here's another example of cash flow investing in Brooklyn that's in Rotorua. So a property that we bought, front house and the back house, we bought it together. We paid $515 for it about 4 or 5 years ago. Our renovation cost was $35,000. Our total cost was $550. Our market value came back at $850. So instantly we made 300 grand equity and we refinanced. Today the property is worth more than that. We get 1,500 a week rent now, so we'll just work on 1,300, $67,000 a year. After paying our operating expenses and everything, we are banking $56,000. Operating expenses are like rates, management fee, insurance, all of that. We are geared at 70% and we fix his loan at 4%. We pay 15,000 back to the bank. We bank $41,000 cash flow positive. That's $800 a week cash flow positive. What do? We just hammer the loan down. We take the funds and pay off the loans. Now, this is an investment that I would buy hundreds of this if I could find them. Front house, back house, and a little unit under the front house with 1,000 square meters of land. These are the properties that I couldn't even build for that price. So this are golden assets. So we want to buy as many as we can, and if we find them, and there's lots out there. I see my clients buying them all the time. You need to be out looking and you buy them. $41,000 a year is not bad cash flow positive return, guys. And that's what I chase. Land banking, cash flow positive. You can see it here. That's what I'm chasing, and this is in a good area of Rotorua. Here's another example from 2010. And you must be wondering, why am I showing you a 2010 example? I want to show you this because I'm still doing what I was doing back in 2010. Nothing has changed. 15 years later. I bought this house for 320, front house, and it came with a big section, not a dwelling at the back. I spent money on renovation and building the second dwelling. My total cost was 610. My market valuation at that time came back at 1.6. My instant equity was $990,000. That's 62% equity I made. I refinanced, took the money, and bought more houses. Look at the cash flow on this property now. The rent is now $1,600 a week. Sorry, I've just haven't updated my numbers. Even at $1,200 a week, $62,000 a year after my operating expenses, it was 54,500 basically, or 55,000 a year cash flow positive. Now we've cleared the debt. It's all paid off now. So I got no interest to pay now. I've cleared all the debt on this property. So I'm banking basically $55,000 a year cash flow positive on this property. I paid it off and all of that. Now the only thing I've done is I've just put an overdraft facility, which is working capital, that I can access. And Chris was the one who sorted that out for me. He got me about $1 million overdraft facility on the property. So, and that's available there. So you can see, guys, my strategy hasn't changed. I buy cash flow positive properties. I buy properties with big land, and I add second or third dwellings and make it cash flow positive. Now, this is another example of land banking that we're doing in Rotorua recently. We bought the front side. We paid about $400,000, including doing up the property. It's rented for $600-700 a week. Then we bought the rear house when that came up. So we got a road access from both sides, and the rear house was about $400 with $600-700 a week rent as well. So now we own 2,000 square meters of land for less than $1 million and two big houses. Then we went on the other side. We bought two houses here for $500,000, including renovation. This is rented for $800 a week. Then our neighboring property came up for sale. We bought that as well. We paid about $500,000. That's rented for about $700 a week. So we are buying sites that we can develop later on. We don't need to rush and develop. They're cash flow positive. They're currently paying themselves off and paying the interest and operating expenses and principal payments. So we are happy with the cash flow we're getting. So we'll just keep them there. And as the neighboring properties come up for sale, we'll try and buy them. Now you can look here. Our neighbors are for sale on this side here. We're not going to buy it because that's a cross-lease site. Adds no value to us. If they were selling it together as one unit, we'd probably buy it. But because it's cross-lease, doesn't make sense. We'll probably buy these properties here. Those properties make sense for us to grab. So this is an example of, again, land banking, cash flow, positive investing. Now, they're always out there. You can find them all the time. Now, this is the Auckland development we're working on at the moment. I have to tell you, I've never hated Victor so much. They've basically held our project up, and it's probably cost us 100 grand unnecessary cost. And all they want us to do is a little tweak. And, so it's taken about another 12 months to finish the project. But anyway, we're building 8 units here. Our land cost is 1.35, including building consent and resource consent. Development and build cost is 2.05, so our total cost is 3.4 million. Market value is 5.7, so our equity is sitting about 2.3 million on this. We are going to bank that. Now, chances are we might have blown the budget by 300 grand. We still make $2 million equity. This is not bad. This is good side. This is the stuff we do in development. Now, most of you must be listening, going, "Well, we can't do this. These are big numbers," and they are big numbers. So I would encourage you to buy properties that are cash flow positive with big land, like this kind of properties. Those are the assets you probably want to chase. Now, where do you start? Like, you've been listening to me, you've been listening to Chris, the fan, you've been listening to Maggie's stories. You must be thinking, "Wow, this is overwhelming." It is, but don't worry, we've got a little roadmap for you here, and we're going to guide you through. So work out where you are in your life. Work out what you're doing, work out what you have, and then work out where do you want to be. So if you're a mum and dad, you might have a house, a badge, a couple of cars, and a boat, and you got kids going to private school or normal school in Auckland, and you go, "Oh, life is expensive." Great. Work out where do you want to be in the next 10 years, right? And then based on that, you will make changes to your life because you'll start hanging around people who think like you, who like to grow their assets and things like that. And we have a software called Wealth Sweat. I'm going to talk about that later. Get the right knowledge in place. So that's really important. You hang around with people who do property investing. Don't hang around with people who don't do property investing because they're just going to give you negative news all the time. We promote property school and development school. Now, we don't want you to do development school until you've done property school because you've got to understand the lingo, you've got to understand the words people use, you've got to understand the supply chain, who you need to use, and all of that. So, property school is one of the best cheapest knowledge place that you'll ever get. We've had clients say to us all the time, they've spent 40 or 50 grand on education, and property school has given them more knowledge than what they've spent on education. And then, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. All that knowledge that, accumulated, Matthew Gilligan, yourself, and everyone that we bring into property school and putting it there. So, I mean, if I knew about this course when I started, before I would have jumped on it. But luckily for myself, I'm here. I'll be able to see it.
Well, then we got a special price for you, mate. $34,000.
Oh, thank
Don't worry
you.
about 500. We'll leave that 500 behind. So it's $500, something like 500 plus GST. We'll tell you the price shortly, guys. It's not an expensive course. It's one of the cheapest courses. Get a strategy in place. What do you want out of life? Maybe you've got a family home that's too expensive, that's holding all your wealth. Cash that up. Buy a new family home and a couple of investment properties. I'm just giving you this an idea. Get structures in place. You need your structures in place before you go for funding. Otherwise, what's going to happen is the banks are going to get upset. They'll do all the work getting you funding and you're changing all the structures again. So get your structures first. And this is where GRA comes in place. You come and have a meeting with GRA. We'll then put the right structures in place for you. And then you arrange finance. You go and see Chris. You throw him all the structures and our advice and get our finance sorted. That's what his job is. That's what he'll do for you. He'll go to numerous different banks and get you funding. All right. And Chris is one of the best brokers you'll ever meet. Now, then once your finance in place, then you go out and buy houses. Now, if you do find something you're not sure about, and I reckon it should be all the properties you shouldn't be sure about, get Maggie or Than to give you a hand. For 250 plus GST an hour, you might get a bloody good advice saying don't do the deal, and it's not expensive. Guys, everyone that's used Maggie and Than, they've been quite impressed with them. So, they're busy people. They're not really nearly running around the office doing nothing. They're busy people, but they'll book you in if you're buying properties because they want you to make the right decision. And then obviously anyone at GRA. So if you're trading properties, we can help you. If you're buying properties to hold, we can help you with that as well. Guys, so what is Property School? Property School is our online on-demand course. It's 12 months access to all the modules. You can submit your questions. We'll answer them. Maggie normally answers all the questions. It's a 7-week. You also get access to 7 weeks of Wealth Sweat, which is one of our online growth software. It shows you where your assets are and where you're going to be in the next 10 years. It's a really good software to use, and we use it all the time. You also get a GRA book of your choice. Now, Than and I and Chris are kind today, so because Maggie's not here, if you do sign up for Property School, you will get both books for free. And I'll tell you, I have sleeping disorder, but every time I read this book, I sleep well. So, guys, make sure you get it. Chris, you're getting recorded if you laugh like that. We'll send it to Matt,
That's all of the night.
Don't tell Matt that. Yeah. So it's $4.95 today, guys. And like I said, it's and Chris has also mentioned this earlier, and Then as well. You get a lot with property school. It's insane amount of knowledge that you will get. Matt's life experience in there, Chris's life experience in there, Then's life experience, certain of my life experience in there. Not all of that. Oh, there comes Matt. and Maggie's life experience as well. What Maggie's done, So it's good,
We lost Maggie. She's had so much life experience, we lost her.
Yeah, we've lost her. Poor Maggie. She's very sick today. This is the only day we get to tease her. Normally she's like a strict head teacher, staring down at us, about to smack us. Um, so guys, you get a lot from us, when you sign up property school. You also get a free initial meeting. That's 500 plus GST an hour. So in my charge, our rate is 500 plus GST an hour, and I'm not kidding with you. I get booked up 3-4 weeks in advance on charge our rates, but I do make time when people want to see me, and I see them, and I've helped a lot of my clients. And Chris and Then and Maggie know a lot of my clients, and I can tell you 95% of my clients are multimillionaires. They're not multimillionaires, born multimillionaires. They all came and did property investments with us over the last 18 to 20 years, and they've stuck to it. So that's what's happened there. So we promote. I mean, the first thing we promote is family time and all of that, but we promote property investment as long-term life choice. It gives you choice in your life, gives your grandchildren and your children choice in life as well. Um, Property Development School. Now, I'm not going to talk about this too much, but it's an online on-demand course as well. You get access to it for 12 months. It's a very detailed course. So if you haven't done property school, please do not bother doing property development school. It's very technical as well, and you still get a lot of access to a lot of supply chain of people who do property development, and again, there's specialist presenters in there. Those guys, such as like town planners. Well, Chris will talk about specialist lending as well,
It's
and the
very
course.
specialized.
Yeah, sorry, Chris.
It's very specialized. Yeah.
Very, very specialized. So
Very
we
specialized.
we only will suggest you to do that once you've done property school, and it costs 750 plus GST. So that's quite a cheap, school. They will give you a lot of details and knowledge. Now, this is my recommendation, guys. This is what I tell people, and trust me, Chris never follows this. Don't do nothing, act sooner, not later, right? Really important. Why are you laughing, Chris? So very, very important. Like don't go home now and you've listened to me and go to bed and do nothing. Get onto it and do something. Get your meetings organized. Go and see Chris. Go and see Maggie. Go and see Then, or come and see us here at GRA. Don't use lack of time or fear as an excuse. Anyone that uses lack of time, and I've caught one of my staff as well doing this, and she said, I never have time. I was like, give me your phone. And I opened her phone and I looked at the screen time, 6 hours per day. She watches videos and all these things. And I'm like, what? Oh, that's such a waste of time in life. And so I control my screen time. I don't spend time looking at people's profile. I've come out of Facebook. I only have Messenger, so I don't look at people's profiles. Not interested in people's stories, social stories. That doesn't get me going. And draw yourself a timeline with targets. So let's say you're 40 now. Where do you want to be at 50? You know, Someone like Then, he's 30 now, and when he turns 40, he wants to have 10 kids. And
Better start now.
Don't talk about me. Don't talk about me, Sal.
oh yeah, Blake, Chris, he's a Blake. What do you call it? He's a baby boomer. 100%. You could classify him as a baby boomer. Isn't it, Chris?
Yeah. Thank you, Sal. Thank you.
I've never seen you so depressed.
Yes.
Yeah. So draw yourself a timeline with targets. When I was 26, I drew myself a timeline. At 36, I wanted to own 10 properties. Right. And when I started writing my timeline, I went, at 26, I was like, shit, why can't I own 10 properties now? And that's the question I asked myself. It was just getting your mindset right and get going. Surrounding yourself with the right people. That was so important. And one of the first person I hang around with was Chris. I went and kept buying him kebabs and feeding him till he could get me funding.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
Really? For those of you who may think, even question anything Sal's saying, he was talking about his own story, and I met Sal, I think it was late 2008, early 2009. This is peak recession. This is the heart for any of you who is going right now. Who is questioning whether you should buy property. and Sal, I'm kind of almost involving you in the conversation right now.
Yeah.
I kind of think this right now is the closest thing we had back to the GFC, if you understand what I'm saying.
Oh, yes,
We
100%.
do agree that, and I remember Sal is like, Chris, I want to buy now. This is the time. This is the time to go shopping. And I think Sal had, I don't know if I'm talking out of shop, Sal, but I think you had at that stage, like you own 2 properties with your dad or something like that.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Something like this. And I'm lucky enough to be good mates with Sal and just watch him grow and grow. And if any of you think he's, excuse my language, bullshit, like everything he's saying is true. He's just built and built and built. And he doesn't take no for an answer. Like he just, everything he is saying, those portfolios, those stories is true.
And when I owned those 2 properties, I think it was 3 properties with my dad. He said to me, I said to my dad, I was like, oh, we got to buy more houses. He said to me, son, I'm getting too old. Why don't you? And he was only in his 40s. He said, I'm getting too old. Why don't you do it on your own? So I borrowed 60 of my dad.
Yep.
And then,
bang. And then he's been bought again and again.
And again. And all I was chasing was 40 grand margin.
He bought safely good properties.
Yes. And that's what I did. I went back to the basics. And that's what I'm trying to tell everyone today. Stick to the basics. Yeah. We don't have to do anything complicated, you know. I mean, I do property developments. I find it very complicated and stressful. And, you know, lucky things on site. But, man, if I had to be on site, I'd kill someone, you know. That's how stressful it gets. You got to think long term when it comes to property. I can tell you guys, if you think you can buy a property today and become a multimillionaire in the next 2 years, don't do that. But if you buy the right properties today, I can tell you the right properties discounted, you will definitely become a multimillionaire within 5 years. You know, and we are hunting for those properties all the time. Somehow my client buys them before I do, and there's some amazing properties they buy. Every day when I see some of the buyers, I'm like, wow, those are good assets. You know, and clients come to me with private deals that they are negotiating. I don't interfere with that. I have no interest in stealing from anyone else. And if a client tells me that they're going to auction, I'll just back off. I have no interest. Or if I'm going to auction, I'll tell them I'm at that auction as well. But I'm not going to compete with people, you know, just to push prices up. So, guys, you got to think long term. You can't think short term. Now, this is a good text message I was showing Maggie, and Maggie said to me, "Why don't I publish this?" This is about 4 or 5 years old, and I was at home. I think it was 2021 or 22. Anyway, this is a client. I'll try not to say his name, and he writes to me. He goes, "I've been updating my wealth suite. I'm sitting around 7 million just in property." What he means is $7 million equity. Big gains in the last 12 months, probably in the last 6 months. I reply, I go, yeah, you should be over $10 million in net worth. Now, what I meant when I said that was including his business, he should be over $10 million. He goes, and I said to him, you have done well, mate. Wow, yeah, maybe $10 million doesn't feel like it, but thanks, you've helped me a lot, so I appreciate that too, bro. Now, you can obviously see this guy, this is a guy texting me back, so he uses the word bro. And then I look at my last message. This is my golden ingredient, and nothing changes from there. I think it's just sticking to the game plan. Buy properties, pay off debt. Buy good assets, land bank, cash flow positive, etc. There's nothing else we've changed with our property investment. You know, we just stick to that all the time. Now, this particular person, Chris and I actually flew in to see him in Wellington, and he was going broke. He was on negative $1.5 million equity. And Chris came up to me and said to me, when is this guy going to go bankrupt? When we were at the hotel.
Yeah, I remember this. I remember the story. Yeah.
Yeah. And I turned around and said to Chris, I think we can pull this off.
I know exactly who you're talking about now.
Yeah. And today, because
that text quite a while ago, isn't it? He's worth more than that now.
Yeah. Today he's worth about $18 million.
Yeah. I was going to sit and say he's worth a lot more than that.
A lot more. And again, just putting his head down, working hard, and investing in the right assets. This is all what this guy did. And this has taken him, 12, 13 years to go from negative 1.5 to 18 million. You know? And this is it. The last text message is what we just stuck to, you know? And he's doing so well that last year when he flew in to see me, we went and bought him a nice Porsche Taycan. And it was, cash, paid cash for the car. So he's done really well since then, but there's so many clients that hang around with me and they've done well, and we just stuck to the same deals. It wasn't a short-term game. It was all sitting there doing long-term investments,
I would say that's probably 14 years.
Yeah,
Helen?
14 years. Yeah, you're right. About 14 years. But, you know, coming out of negative 1.5 to
Oh
18
yeah,
million today, that's impressive, $20 million. Guys, I always talk about this, and this is something really important. And obviously, I want you to take a photo of this, you know, if you can, because what I'm going to say next is very, very important, and it's going to play a big role in your life. Same as you, Chris. You should take a photo of this. So, so, you know, I have clients who bought houses 15, 18 years ago, and they've insured their house for 300 grand. I can tell you this now, and touch wood, nothing happens. If there was any damages on your house, if the house got bent down, you'll get 300 grand from the insurance company, right? Because they'll tell you, good luck, it's going to cost you 700 grand to build, right? Get your insurance reviewed on your house, get it sorted. We use a company called Initio. They offer great housing products and at a cheap price. We use them on a daily basis. Now, I think we've got about 400 houses insured with them now. That's us and GRA clients, right? Because they do really good pricing. They look after you, and if there's damages, they pay you out. Now, revalue your house at the current replacement value. Something that was going to cost you 300 grand 10 years ago, I can tell you it's 900 grand, 700 to 900 grand nowadays. Because if a house burns down, you've got additional cost of 50 or 60 grand removing everything, all the rubbish. Then you've got to redo your retaining walls and the driveway and all of that. That's alone about 150 grand, right? Get your houses reinsured or get it checked and get the right values put in place, guys. Now, something else I want to talk about is your personal insurance. Please get your life insurance checked. Your personal life insurance, your kids' health insurance, your personal health insurance. Make sure everything is in place. We've recently had a mate, you know, Than and I recently had a mate,
Mhm.
and his wife died. And because he was connected to the right people at Risk Direct, he's managed to get close to $1 million payout. Now, said his wife died, you know, and they have a little child. So now that money could be used to, pay off his house and look after his little boy, you know, and that's what's going to happen, you know, that's what he's doing with the money. But because he was with the right people, us, and listening to us, right? This got sorted. Please take an hour out of your life and get your life insurance done. Now, if you go to riskdirect.co.nz, you'll get a guy by the name of Steve Monroe. He's funny, he's hilarious. You can abuse him as much as you want. For free, he can review your life insurance policy.
He doesn't. Steve doesn't agree with that, but yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, he doesn't agree. For free, he can review, recommend you the changes. Now, because he's a financial advisor, he will not force sell you anything. He'll tell you can go back and talk to your advisor, right? Or he's more than happy to do it for you. So you got to get Steve on your side, get him checked, take 1 hour out of your life. Anyone that's turning over 35 years old, please get your insurance sorted because that's equally as important as investing in properties,
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
know? And, you know, like recently, Ten had to use some specialist service, but I think you're okay now, Ten.
Lucky I'm under 35.
If I could just really quickly say that and say, you don't even know this yet, Sal, I'll talk to you about this later. There's a mutual client Sal and I have, and this guy's a really entrepreneurial, so you might know, you don't even know this. This guy's dad died 2-3 years ago of cancer. This guy's he's a really successful property trader, owns a lot of property. He's in all kind of like things. He's got a lot of stuff going on, and out of nowhere, this guy's healthy. He owns a gym as a side business. He's diagnosed with liver cancer. This guy does not, and the really dumb thing is his spouse is actually in insurance. He does not have personal insurance.
Oh, no, really?
And so at the moment, he has to now. The part I'll throw out there and go, okay, he's got a spouse. That part's important. He doesn't have kids. He's actually got a really good asset base. His spouse was his fiance. They're engaged. But the really dumb thing is that this guy is like all intensive. He's healthy, but he's now got to pay for every operation. And
Wow.
so this is one of my good mates. He's one of your clients, Sal.
Yeah.
And like we're now talking like 30 to 50 to $60,000 of like quite often to get, because you have to get to the front of the queue. Right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, but I'm not an expert on this. But I'm talking saver at his situation, it was probably I'm not giving you insurance advice, but it might have been $200 a month as health insurance or something like that. He's not spent that money, and he has liver cancer.
See, and this is it, guys. Please, just go and take your time out. This is equally as important or more important than your KiwiSaver and probably your salary. Get these things put in place because it will help you. It's sad that we know people who listen to us, who drink with us, who socialize with us, and take this for granted. Just take 1 hour out of your life, get someone like Steve Munro at Risk Direct to just have a look at this. Just get it sorted, guys. This will be one of the best advice we'll ever give you, right? And you will send me a nice bottle of whiskey and some dark chocolates, and and say thank you, Salesh, for telling us this on the day, and thank you, Chris. And I'm telling you, this is so important. So please, do get your life insurance, sorted and get it checked. Actually, health insurance is more important, like Chris said, you know. And
You
I
don't,
don't,
you don't want to pay for it, but you want it when you need it.
yeah, and I mean, I bet Chris that he might be saying he wished he owned one less property and paid his health insurance, had all the cover in place, you know. And so last year, like I pay about $10,000 a year healthcare on the whole family, and last year my family alone used 18 grand of health cover. That just shows 100% return on my money. I don't even care about the return,
Oh,
but
and
giving,
I love what Sal said there. To me, insurance is a gap.
yeah,
But like Steve's one of the best guys you can ever talk to. Is that like insurance is designed to fill a gap. If you're sitting there and you're worth $50 million, you don't need insurance.
yeah,
Unless your life goal is to be a billionaire and you need to insure that somehow, if that makes sense. To
yeah.
me, insurance is designed to fill that gap between where you are and what your plans are. That if something happens, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and Chris, like Chris said, if you're worth $50 million, you probably don't need life or health insurance because you
100%.
can.
And
But
He's really good at de-insuring people
yeah,
to actually take it away if you don't need it.
yeah. But the important part is pay your health insurance because touch wood, nothing happens to you. If something does happen, you're the first in the queue because you're part of an insurance company,
100%.
and do it. I've seen it happen to my son. He suffers from extreme eczema. He's got 5 specialists. The insurance company doesn't care when he needs to visit. They make sure he gets in first. And I hope that he's going to get better. Over the years. But that's what we use. And recently, a client of mine at the age of 53 got extreme eczema that is still admitted in hospital 3 weeks later. He can't move. He's in so much pain. And because he's got health insurance, he's been looked after like a king. So please get hold of Steve Munro, get this sorted, get your houses all reinsured for the right value and replacement cost. Take a photo of this, call the right people, and get it going. All you have to do is email them, and they'll just get on with it. It won't even take an hour of your life. So do it, guys. Now, just before we finish, and we're going to start answering questions shortly. Again, as part of being coming to GRA, if you're a new client or you haven't been to GRA before, we'll give you an initial free meeting. That's normally 500 plus GST an hour. We'll cover your asset protection, tax planning advice, and any accounting services. Also, we'll give you access to Chris if you need it, and you can call Chris directly. He's not someone that we try and ring fence. He's quite approachable guy, but you'll get access to people like Then and Maggie, and to our tax consultants. We've got some amazing tax consultants here, and amazing accountants that you can deal with. If you do sign up for Property School today, we'll throw you the 2 books for free. You can have it, and you can have some other things for free as well. We can discuss, but it's all about getting you the right knowledge and things like that. If you need anything, please email Amy or scan that code there, and fill out the form, and Amy will get in touch with you. Now, before we go, I know, sorry guys, we've had Chris today, so we were taking a little bit more time. Then, do you have the questions? Or we got some questions here, and we'll have more questions coming. So, Chris, a question for you: what is the interest rate with the second-tier lender that lends with a 10% deposit?
Great question. That product with 10%, I think, is early 8s.
And that's pretty good for second-tier lender, right?
So if I can just really
Yeah.
quickly, I don't want to spend too much
Yeah.
time. So there's one of the things, and this is we'll get into this with property school and GRA, and we combine resources to do this, is that often with a second tier is we're going, do you need a second tier long term or and so you like Than is like and Sal are trading experts. Like Than, you'll teach people how to trade property A. Would that be right?
Yes, correct.
Like you'll find and I've got to be very quick here because there's questions, but there's situations where a lot of you might be here for buy and hold. What happens to a lot of buy and hold investors is that people hit a brick wall. And so a really common strategy, and please jump in, boys, is that you might then hit a brick wall and you might bring in trading as a strategy to keep moving forward. And so I don't want to talk too much about that product, but kind of what often is what I'll do is that there's creative financing is the same as creative property strategies. Most of us, I think, here, if you're coming to property school, is you're looking to probably buy and hold. Would that be correct, boys? Overall?
Correct.
But what happens, a lot of you will hit brick walls and that you can't. So you then have to bring in trading strategies, development strategies, creating finance strategies. And that's what we talk about more. Is that fair to say?
Yep.
Yeah. And so I won't talk too much more.
Perfect.
Disregard the cost, which I just said. It's more about the opportunity to do the deals there. And we can and what we do as a team is take you from there to cheaper funding. That's not what you'll stay on if you do the deal properly.
Correct. So what are you saying is someone put 10% deposit down, bought a rental property, renovated the house, refinanced it. You might be able to take them to a first tier lender.
Good. That's what I love.
Yeah.
Yes. So start at don't focus on the fact you might be paying 8 at the start. Buy the property right and focus on how we get you back to bank and you're paying bank rates. And you're going to build up multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity in the process.
Yes, exactly. So, guys, Chris is your guy to go to with banking. Now, obviously, if you go to Chris thinking that you're going to go to a second tier lender, Chris might actually be able to take you to a first tier lender, and he's because
I'll
as
always
well.
take you to bank first if I can.
Yeah, that's his first priority. Do you have a building team that work with that's affordable for renovation? Yes, we do. That's Mr. Than. Than, do you want to answer that?
Well, I mean, over the time we have built a network of contractors and suppliers that we work with. So, in conjunction with building new houses, also running renovations, we have a network of team that can do anything. So from ground up. So yeah, to answer that question, yeah, we've got A to Z covered in house.
Yeah, we got everything. We do retaining walls. We can help you with anything you need, drainage, building decks or building the houses from scratch. We can help you with that. How do you find discounted properties if you don't live in the region? What we do here is basically to find discounted properties. What we do is we pay property finders, and roughly if you pay about $20,000 to a property finder, they could find your property with about $250,000 of equity. And that's what you got to chase in town. That's what we do. I always pay a property finder. I don't have time to go and look for properties all the time, so we find property finders. And Than knows the same as well. Every time property finder brings a deal over to him, he'll bring it to us, and we'll all have a look at it.
And then the greatest thing about here is it's the people around you, the network. You got accountants, you got people that are actually doing the real deal. Myself. And every day, just for me being in the office is learning. I'll hear from something from Chris, or I'll hear something from the accountant. This is nothing. I'm like,
I didn't come through properly, but I wrote the word community.
Yes,
I came through. One of the big things when Sal, sorry to cut you off, Ben, but it's the biggest thing. And sorry, mate. Was I think what anyone who's looking at joining GRA, joining Than, joining Sal, joining anything to do with it is community. I think it's the absolute community of knowledge.
And we don't force sell anything. We just put you straight what you should be doing, who you should be talking to. We have a big client base ourselves, but we like to share knowledge, and that's what we do. We're always here to help. Like I said to you, 95% of my clients are multimillionaires, and because they stick to property investment. You see in the text message, nothing has been for sale. We want to promote property knowledge. That's what we're here for. And I don't think we've got many questions coming, guys. So I'll say good night to everyone. And if anyone's got any questions, email Amy, and then we'll fix it up for you, or we'll organize a meeting time. And make a time to go and see Chris, Steve Munro, really important, Fen and Maggie, and not me. Avise.
He's a busy guy.
Avise them as much as you want.
Good to see you, Chris.
Yeah. Okay, see you guys.